Hello and welcome into everyone that's tuned in to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for being here. For some of you guys, maybe the first time that you watch a video where it's just the two of us. Thank you so much for subbing on the video that we had with Pete. But now straight to the point, this is a segment that we do. It's a weekly segment where we analyze the players whose stocks went up or down based on their performance over the weekend. It's the business end of the season, a lot of action, a lot of guys playing in important leagues. And we do it in a top 5 format on the most relevant things that happened over the weekend. Now, for the very first thing, Braden, the most relevant thing, was it a stock up or stock down? Which player did or did not impress you?
Yeah, for my first one, it's a kind of a bit of a cheap shot, so I feel a little bad, but it's going to be Reyna for the stock down. I think we all know how poorly his loan has been going to Nottingham Forest and not even being included in the matchday squad, and I didn't see any reports that he had an injury or an illness or anything like that, so it looks like they just didn't see a point in using him at all against Chelsea. Ended up losing that game, deservedly so. Matt Sell's another disaster class. Maybe it's time to give Turner another chance. But regardless, I think we all know what Reyna has done this season. He's basically wasted a year of his career, which is not really something you want heading into one of the biggest tournaments of your life. Potentially the biggest for him, because we know obviously the World Cup is a bigger tournament than Copa America, but he didn't really have that big of a role at the World Cup. So I think this one is the one where he comes in, expects to be a starter and really the primary creative force in the USMNT. So I think this is probably the most important tournament of his career, including anything he's done at club level. So to be in good form going into that would be a huge positive, but unfortunately he's been not used. Although one thing I will say is he's very injury prone, so maybe him not being used is good because at least it means he's healthy for the tournament. But hopefully he can progress next season. It looks like Dortmund are planning to loan him out again next year. That's the leading option right now. Hopefully him and Jorge Mendes can actually choose a place that will value him and give him game time. Not a good start for Mendes as his agent. First move, and it's already a massive failure. Hopefully they can find a more suitable location next year. Maybe it's even back at Dortmund. Maybe it's a permanent deal. But anyways, I think Reyna deserves a stock down, not just this week, but for the overall season that he's had.
Yeah, I think the ramifications of that loan move turned out to be so bad. It's a lot worse than we thought, especially considering that I think that Tack posted he would have likely played the same role at Dortmund. Only difference is he'd find himself in a Champions League final other than in a relegation scrap there for Forest. But let's see if it helps him grasp into the mentality that we think that if he does clutch into, he's going to be one of the best players that we ever had. So important. He's a vital piece for our summer. Moving on, talking about vital pieces for our summer, it's Captain America himself. He's the most relevant pick right here for me of the week. Stock up for him, definitely. Again, I mentioned it before. Got to keep on mentioning. Once you start using the wristband tape right here, your skills as a winger, they go up. So he needs to keep wearing those. Good match for him. So nice to see the amount of goal contributions, the best of his career. Double tallies already in his first season for Serie A, for AC Milan in Serie A. Not the best seasons for the club, but even then, in a somewhat chaotic environment and where they did underachieve, Pulisic was still able to have a good season. Really happy for him. I think that overall, especially considering what he came from, it's a great season. Definitely back in form, and it's incredible for us because he's heading into this tournament in probably one of the best forms, and confidence-wise, probably the most stable he's ever been in his career, and that's so nice. You can see that the fans love him, and it's going to be great for us during the summer. So maybe a sign of things to come. Moving on to the next pick, Braden, is it a bit a positive one this time?
It is going to be a positive one. I'm going to go for Reyna's best friend, Joe Scally. Actually, another player playing at a Borussia club. I think he's really kind of taking his opportunity now. We know that Dest is injured for the Copa America and for even longer after that. Hoping he comes back on as just as good as he was before, but that's going to be a while down the road, which means Scally should be the primary right back for at least the Copa America. Whether Greg wants to experiment and play some midfielders there or Weah, we'll see. But I'm expecting Scally to be the number one option there, and he's really capitalized on this chance. In the past couple of games, I think he's been very good for Gladbach, getting an assist especially. I thought it was a really, really nice assist, burning his defender on the left-hand side and pulling it back very nicely. I think he's in a good form, and it's actually kind of funny. He's now getting into this form playing left wing back, which is kind of what Dest was doing. Both of them playing on the right for the national team. So he's kind of embracing his inner Dest, as hopefully we need, because if he can provide anything going forward, that's usually Dest's role. Right back, he's the creative force coming out of the back. And if Scally can at least do some of that, I think it's going to be a huge help, because right now I haven't really seen much of him attacking wise, at least for the national team. It's been mainly a defensive focus. So if he can provide a little bit of that creativity that we lose with Dest, it'll go a long way. So I think it's a stock up for him, and I'm excited but maybe a little nervous about how he's going to do this summer.
Yeah, nice to see him step up. Maybe he's heard about the rumors. A lot of people have at some point mentioned that Weah could be the replacement for Dest. So it's nice to have options, and both options playing in Europe at a good level. Moving on to another player that's playing in Europe at a good level. I think there was a time where he was a lot closer to the roster than he is now. I'm going to pick Luca de la Torre. Really like Luca. He's from San Diego as well, so I always rooted for him. But I think that looking at his club situation with Celta de Vigo, and also him, he hasn't really been playing. I feel like the last 4 matches when he had cameos, very small cameos, and he hasn't really done much. There's not much for him to do either, but they're still in a very bad position in the table. I think that it's safe to say Celta de Vigo, once again, they did underachieve. Maybe it's just the nature of where the club finds themselves. It's fairly located there, closer to the bottom of the table. But I would be worried if I was Luca, if that move that we thought maybe he could get after a really good January and February, that he was having definitely had the stocks up at that point, kind of died down a little bit. So I don't know if he really will be able to propel himself to a move during the summer. And mostly for his USMNT aspirations, I think at this moment, even though it's a 26-man roster, I don't think anyone would go crazy if Luca was missing out on it. And I think that's a huge negative for him, because at the start of the season, you'd probably have Luca as a third, fourth option there in another 26-man roster. He should be a guarantee, but it's not looking like it. So a bit of a bad one right there, but it brings us to our third pick. Braden, who is it?
Yeah, and just to add one more thing quickly, as of now, I don't think they've confirmed anything about a 26-man roster, and the fact that they've already required the preliminary rosters to be submitted, I think indicates maybe that it will still be a 23, which means Luca, I think almost certainly would be on the outside looking in. But for my number third pick, I'm going to go for Cameron Carter-Vickers, and it's going to be a stock up and a stock down for completely different reasons. I'll start with the stock up, the good news first. He had a pivotal role in Celtic's Old Firm Derby win over Rangers, a 2-1 win to all but seal the league title. They've done it. I mean, they're ahead on goal difference. They're 6 points clear of Rangers with 2 games left. They can officially seal it on Wednesday, which I expect them to do, but this game basically clinched the title for them. If they had lost, they would have been tied on points, but Celtic have won the title. CCV had a very good game against Rangers, I thought, and I mean, we mentioned so many times on the channel this year, playing against Rangers is one of the only meaningful fixtures you can play as a Celtic player. The European games are the other ones, but those pass very quickly, since realistically Celtic aren't going to do anything in there, progress further or anything. So performing against Rangers is one of the key things to do. And even last season for Malik Chillen, it was kind of a reverse situation with Rangers playing against Celtic. I don't think he really impressed there. So you have to give props to CCV for performing in those big games. But I'm also going to give him a stock down as well, because a report came out today as we record this that he is firmly happy at Celtic, which is a good sign that there's no turmoil at the club, but that he also doesn't really want to make a move. He's content staying at Celtic for a couple more years. And I think that just shows a complete lack of ambition. And I said it on our X or Twitter. Go follow us there if you haven't already. I think that the fact that Miles Robinson got so much criticism, now deserved criticism, don't get me wrong, for staying in MLS, signing for FC Cincy, instead of maybe testing the waters in Europe. We know he had interest there, probably some offers as well that just didn't reach his valuation, but he played it safe, stayed in MLS, showed his lack of ambition, really, and I think CCV is basically doing the same thing. Overall, Celtic are, let's be honest, they're a much better team than anyone in MLS. I think them and Rangers would walk the league, but overall, the quality of the Scottish Premiership is, I think, as a whole, lower than MLS. So you have the important games, like I mentioned, against Rangers, against European teams, and most likely the Champions League every year, but there's really not that many of those. And the rest of the league, it's not even as competitive as MLS is. So I think to be staying at Celtic and to still be expecting, a lot of people want him to start for the USMNT because we know Tim Ream's on his way out. I don't think that lack of ambition should be rewarded with a starting spot. I think I've been pretty vocal on my lack of trust for CCB. I need to see him do it in a competition that matters. So I'm going to give him both a stock up and stock down. If he ends up staying at Celtic for another couple of years, I expect him, hopefully, to continue to fall down the pecking order.
Yeah, I think I know he's not moving, but it's a sideways move, or maybe even a downwards move, kind of like Miles. It's a good allusion to make because he's not going to get the criticism that Miles did. But yeah, I think I completely agree with you. The overall quality, again, the floor and ceiling of talent. I think the floor of MLS is a lot higher than most Ross County or Aberdeen. Aberdeen's all right. But anyways, next up for me is Johnny Cardozo, our center defensive midfielder for Real Betis. Really nice for them to have clinched European competition for next season. I think it's so important for him to be able to play in these competitions. Again, I like how realistic he is, talking about how he wants to stay with Betis, besides these rumors that he might be on the move. He just got there, allotted perfectly on a good squad right there, acclimated to the league seamlessly. Really so happy for Johnny in that sense. It's going to be important for him to be in good form as well, since I think there's a really strong chance that he might start some crucial games for us during Copa America. We don't know if Greg's going to be stubborn or not, but if reason is something to follow, he should be the one starting if there is any sort of minutes restriction on Tyler Adams. So stock up for Johnny. So happy for him. The guy just joined in January and honestly not taking the league by storm, but has acclimated really well, and that's just fine at a really good level for him. Still so young as well. So moving on to the next pick, Braden.
So at number 4, I'm going to go for Ricardo Pepi, and it's going to be another stock down. I just think it's been the story of his season. It's a lack of minutes and a lack of opportunities. And especially now that PSV have clinched the league title, I know Luke de Jong's still going for the Golden Boot, but I think the priority should probably be on getting your striker for the future match fit and good game time, because he is the future of the club, at least for now. Luke de Jong's old. He's on his way out despite having an incredible season. He's still a great player. But I think they should probably be looking towards the future, but they don't seem to be doing that. Who knows? Maybe this upcoming weekend, Pepe will finally get a start. But for now, just 20, 15-minute cameos off the bench really isn't good enough, and it's seen his USMNT standing suffer. I think this is one of the main players you can point to has really seen his USMNT standing diminish concretely this season. We mentioned it in the video with Pete when we were talking about the overall roster prediction and the formation of that. Pepe could very well be left off the Copa America roster in favor of the Olympics, which I wouldn't mind for him necessarily. It'd be good to get him playing time. He'd be one of the best players there, one of the leaders with so much experience for the senior national team being there. But I think it just goes to show how poorly his standing is. He was in a debate for Balogun. I thought he was playing better than Balogun for the national team, at least, like a year ago. And now not only has Balogun, I think, kind of cemented himself ahead of Pepe. Not that Balogun's had that great of a season, but I think he's probably the pretty clear number 1. And I think Sargent this season has come not out of nowhere necessarily, but he's come storming back, probably taking that number 2 spot. You'll see we're going to have a top 10 strikers video coming out pretty soon as well, so stay tuned for that. But you'll probably see in that video the standing on Pepe has kind of gone down a little bit, and I think overall it's just a stock down because he started the season as firmly the number 2 striker, challenging for number 1, and now he's in danger of not even making the final roster.
Absolutely. For unstable of a season that Balogun had, the fact that Pepe didn't take that number 1 spot, I think speaks volumes, really. It's not good enough. I really don't even mind him coming out and saying that the minutes weren't enough. Hopefully things get better next season. I'm also going to pick a player that you just mentioned. It's going to be Josh Sargent. Very unfortunate, not through no fault of his own in terms of ability or performance, but the slight knock that he just picked up again has to be a stock down. I mean, the guy has had a great season, but the injuries just seem to hamper his progress time and time again. I think that considering Balogun's form and how used to playing with the other guys Sargent has been, and the form that he's been as well, I think that he could be the number 1. But these injuries do cost, and it costs this club as well. So I'm going to have to pick a stock down for Josh Sargent. I hope that he's fit. I don't think that it's anything. It's not anything in his fibula, like some people had rumored at the beginning. So he should be back fit fairly soon. Hopefully he's going to be available for Copa America, but it has to be a stock down. He should be firing all cylinders right now at this point for Norwich in the Championship playoffs. But yeah, stock down for me. Now brings us to the last pick.
So for my last pick, we're going to end it on a little bit of a positive note. Despite a pretty tumultuous season for this guy, it's going to be Gabriel Slonina with his stock up. And we know he's been playing out in Eupen in Belgium, and it's been very up and down. I think he's had so many saves, but also so many goals conceded, mainly because Eupen as the worst team, I would say, in the Belgian Pro League this season. They finished the season last and going down next year. Their defense was absolutely woeful. Not a lot Slonina could do, but he will be going back to Chelsea this summer, and he ended his career in Belgium, at least for now. Who knows, maybe he'll go back there at some point in the future, but he ended on a high. Really, really good performance, potentially even his best of the season against Molenbeek this past weekend. Ultimately, it didn't matter. Both of those clubs ended up going down anyway. Slonina kind of condemned Molenbeek to relegation, because if they had gotten a result, they could have gotten out into the relegation playoff that Belgium have and a lot of leagues in Europe have. But 7 saves, clean sheet, man of the match, just a really solid performance from Slonina, and a nice way to end a season that's been pretty disappointing for both himself and for Eupen. Puts him in a little bit of good form, confident ahead of the Olympics, which hopefully he'll be a part of. I see no reason why Chelsea wouldn't release him for that, because he's probably their 4th string goalkeeper right now. There's no reason to have him with the squad for preseason, especially since he'll probably get another loan move this year. I'm hoping to see him loaned out to their affiliate in Strasbourg, but we'll see what happens there. I think it's a nice little small boost in confidence for Slonina heading into the summer, so that's why I have him for stock up.
Nice. That's a nice positive note to end. Talking about Olympics, again, good transition right here to guys that should be crucial for our Olympic campaign, but it's going to be a stock down. Buzio and Tesman, sadly, they have to get a stock down. Well, not really them. I will say, though, Buzio in that game was really wasteful. He started the game really well, but again, the mentality thing that I think that has been one of the primary areas that he needs to improve on seemed to catch on again. Not really alert, marking his men. Tesman wasn't great as well, but didn't really compromise. Buzio didn't either, but just the fact that Venezia don't have the extra rest to give these guys right now. They could be just relaxing. The Olympics is only going to start in July, I think on the 17th of July, so they should have plenty of time until then, but no, it's not going to be the case. They're going to be playing in the playoffs. You never know. I think that Venezia is the best team right there in the playoffs. I think that they should go up. However, you never know. It's a one-off match. They don't even have it's not even 2-legged at some stage. So I think it's very tough. I think that Serie B is a tough league. Now, you should never allow the chance to not go up. And I think that it was all in Venezia's hands. Cosenza did the job. They did their duty. Held Como. It could have spoiled the party, but Venezia, after winning 1-0 at halftime, comes back and loses it 2-1. So major stock down right there. And yeah, hopefully, if anything, it just provides them more time to match fit, and I'll try to find a silver lining if they go up or not. But very disappointing indeed. Moving on to the segment of the show where we keep players on our stock watch, players that we think that are a good recommendation for you guys to keep an eye out during the week. Again, business end of the season, a lot of action to come, Braden. Who have you highlighted? A mainstream pick and one that may go under the radar. Who are they?
I'll start with my under the radar pick, so to speak, because it's maybe a little bit boring, but it's the same as last week, actually. And it's 2 players. You already mentioned him for one of your stock down picks this week. It's going to be Sargent. He's going to have the second leg against Leeds, I believe, on Thursday. He should be back for that game. His injury is nothing serious, just a little knock to take him off in the final minutes of their very boring, has to say, first leg at home. Disappointing that they couldn't get a win there and take a lead into Leeds. But it's all to play for in the second leg. And we all know in these type of playoffs, I don't think there's any away goals anymore in the playoffs, so anything could happen. Leeds will have the home advantage, but Norwich, they're a very good side as well, more than capable of winning the game and advancing to Wembley. I think that's going to be one to watch. And the other EFL boy, Jeremy Kelly from Crawley Town in League 2, they absolutely smashed MK Dons over 2 legs, 8-1. I think is the highest margin of victory in a League 2 playoff fixture ever, over 2 legs. And now they're going to have the final this coming Sunday to get promoted to League 1, going up against Crew Alexandra. It's not the highest of levels, but it's always nice to see an American fighting for something, especially one that just joined the club from USL. We always like to support the USL boys, and only being at the club for half a season already making such an impact for them, and hopefully they do end up going up and we can have an American at a little higher of a level next year. And then for my mainstream player, it's not going to be a player at all. It's going to be a manager. The news just came out that Jesse Marsch, the American coach, we know him from his time at Salzburg, Leipzig, and Leeds, and some interesting takes as a podcast host. I'm trying not to get too into my opinion on some of those. Obviously famous for not knowing how to say Yunus Musa's name, but he has been officially hired as the Canada boss. And I think it just goes to show how much he doesn't like Greg Berhalter, because he was in the running for the USMNT job, ended up losing out to Berhalter, the battle of mid, and now he's taking the Canada job with the sole purpose to beat the USMNT and prove to everybody, probably a USSF, that he's a better manager than Berhalter. Will he prove that? Only time will tell, but I think it's an interesting hire, and it kind of shows how down bad Canada are, because they had to get the 3 Canadian MLS teams to sponsor it. His official job title is, I think, the MLS Canada Men's National Team Manager, which is really funny considering that he's American and MLS is an American league and sponsoring one of our biggest rivals. I think it just goes to show the state of the Canada Soccer Association right now. But it's going to be interesting to see. I think his system actually fits Canada's roster really well. So we'll see how they do in Copa America. Probably a bit of a boost as to whatever interim they would have had. So who knows? Maybe another CONCACAF team could make a run. It's at least going to make for an interesting battle, an interesting storyline whenever they do end up playing the US a couple years down the line. So I'm all for it, honestly. Let's see how he does.
Yeah, the man has a mission to prove everyone that he's better than Greg. Now, not that that takes too much, but I think that he has taken matters into his own hands. I mean, he's going to this No Mexicans, to Canada right there, try to do a job. And honestly, I agree with you. I think his system fits them a lot better than it would ours. And maybe he might have good results. You never know. They do have a world-class player that can pull something out of a hat. So you never know. Definitely a funny story to watch. Moving on. I just thought that was a hilarious appointment. But anyways, moving on to my next pick. It's going to be the non-mainstream player, the one that does go under the radar, but he might find himself with the main roster, Christopher Loon. He is, I think, at this moment, the backup for Jedi. He's going to play in the playoffs already. Just to explain for you viewers, Venezia finished third, so they do have an advantage of playing every game at home, as well as only joining the playoffs later on. All these teams are battling it out before they face Venezia. Christopher Loon playing in the playoffs. Again, really, really a crucial match for them. They did finish the season on a bit of a high. He had a really good game as well. Really good game. If you have the opportunity to watch extended highlights, it's not too hard. If you join some Palermo pages on Instagram, you see he had some really good moments defensively, which I think it's one of the areas where we can pinpoint that he needs to improve on, but very, very solid performance in a game that they needed to do well. Any position there means a lot. So I'm going to keep him on the stopwatch, and staying in Italy, maybe it's biased because of my background, but Weston McKennie going to be playing on May 15th, a final against Atalanta. I think it should be a great game. I'm not too confident that Juve can do it. I think that Atalanta is going to go all out. I think they're a really, really good squad, really underrated, but hopefully Wes and Weah. I'm going to mention Weah as well. Why not? I don't know if he's going to be playing a prominent role in the final, but if he does get involved, great for him. I think that he's finishing the season on a way better note than he started. So hopefully him and Wes can add some silverware to their names. That would be really nice to watch. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this far along into the video. Thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and supporting the channel. Leave a comment down below what you're going to be watching for this week, the players that you think can make a statement. Do you think that Wes and Way are going to get a trophy or not? Let us know in the comments below. We'll make sure to respond to as many comments as we can, and we'll see you next time.